So now it is my privilege to introduce our keynote speaker, Mary Hale Tolar. Mary is the interim vice provost for student success at Kansas State University. She, for 10 years, has been the director of the Staley School of Leadership Studies at K-State. Her research interests are around civic leadership development and women in public service and applied and experiential learning for undergraduates. I know from knowing Mary since 2007 or so that she embodies the values of friendship and hospitality. She's a great listener and a real connector. It was Mary who connected me to KLC in the first place, way back when. And I suspect she's connected some of you here to this place and these ideas. She is going to help us build some connections tonight. Mary Tolar.
Thank you, Julia. We've just heard a lot about what is happening here at KLC, and I'm feeling many things. Julia mentioned that we came to know each other in 2007, and where we were when we first engaged with this place, with this idea, seems not that long ago, and so very long ago. The changes that have happened, the activity that is present with these updates that we've had tonight, it's amazing. And I'm feeling many things. A little nervous. I'm also feeling amazed. I'm feeling a little bemused at all that has become. And it sounds like all that is yet to come. And I'm wondering maybe how other people are feeling. I know how I'm feeling having that experience, but I'm wondering about our friends who this is their first time in this room tonight, their first engagement with KLC. I believe I heard the word pickled. Sounds about right. I'm thinking about our board, thank you, and all the ways that you've invested and thought about and dreamed about the work of this place, and how you must be feeling as you're sitting, listening to all of these updates and things that have happened. There's a lot of activity. I'm also understanding that when we are actively involved and engaged, sometimes it can be a little bit hard to pull it together, to make that connection. And so one of the ways that we do that is through maybe thinking about purpose, the why that started the story. I was at a conference last week in Canada and had the opportunity to listen to Senator Murray Sinclair, who has worked for decades in truth and reconciliation between the Indigenous peoples and the Canadian government. And he talked about often when the groups, when time passes and the activity happens, and maybe there's some division, but even when there's not division, when there's just growth and change, often it is a call to come back to first principles. The first principles that drew you into that relationship, that, in this case, the treaty, the first principles that brought you to the table. So we've heard a lot of activity, about a lot of activity. We've also heard about some of how we are engaged in the work that's right now. And I'd like for you to just take a minute, and instead of pair sharing, this is solo activity, just think for a minute about your first principle when it comes to how you connect with this place. What drew you into a relationship with KLC? So just take a minute and think. This moment of meaning making. Write it down if you like. Just take a minute. When we think about the why that started the story of KLC, as was eloquently, far more eloquently presented earlier in this program than I can do right now. But when you think about the why that started this story of KLC, it's a pretty big and bold why. The ROI that we are banking on, right? We're putting a lot of time and energy and resources because what we want to do is to change the civic culture of Kansas. And I should clarify, we want to improve the civic culture of Kansas. We want it to be stronger, healthier, more prosperous. That's a big ROI. And the glory of tonight is to see all the many ways that the people who care most about this work are busy working. And the activity that is generated from this work is pretty amazing. And it's wonderful and it's absolutely necessary. And if we measure progress, as we want to do, by products or the productivity that happens in quarters, we miss out on the big ROI because this is the long game. We're in it for the long haul. And so my call is to think about the tensions that we have right now between the urgency and patience that's required in this work. There's urgency in this work, not just to be busy, but this is urgent work, what we're trying to do, what we're about, the things that drew you here. When you think back to your first principle, that's urgent work. We can't wait. And yet, we have to be patient because the changes that we seek, what we hope to accomplish, is not going to happen by the next quarter. This is it for the long haul. So, a reminder of the why that started this story. I want to tell you a little bit about these photos. These are all photos that exist in the Leadership Studies building at Kansas State University, the Staley School. And these photos came about because we did a call to our alumni, our students, our friends, faculty and staff all across the university and beyond. And we asked for some photos, some images that represented to them leadership and their relationship with the Staley School. I want to talk a little bit about relationships. So we know that leadership is an activity, not a position, right? Sound familiar? Seen it around? And at its core, leadership is a relationship. We absolutely know that. And I'm not talking necessarily about those deep, affectionate relationships, although wouldn't that be nice? I'm talking about the fact that when we care about something and we want to lead and we want to make change, we have to be in relationship to others. Raquel's told us that it starts with you, but it must engage others. So we know that it's a relationship, and that is what is absolutely critical. It's what brings us to the table, and it's what keeps us at the table. So I don't need to know you forever. I don't need to feel affectionate towards you, to be in relationship with you and to stay in relationship with you. And in fact, that relationship is even more important when we don't agree. When we don't agree, and yet we stay at the table, it's always due to relationships. So So I had a chance to visit with a couple people today about the stories of their relationship with KLC. And I was struck by a couple of them. So Kylie shared today that she received an email from a principal of Riley High School who had just experienced a class that had come to the high school to engage the high schoolers there in learning about leadership. And this is a class that has as its text, your leadership edge. So we use KLC as a textbook in that class. And this is an opportunity for that school and those high schoolers to understand and appreciate and start to understand that the leadership is an activity, not a position, and that it is available to everyone. And he was writing to share how important that was for them. That's a story that means a lot to me because, of course, that's the connection to our curriculum. Another one that really spoke to me and also about the doses that we were talking about. Apparently, it took maybe 4 doses for Adrian, but Adrian was talking about how he came to be connected with KLC, that it was through a transformation grant, and then it took a couple more doses for it to really connect. But he stayed at the table. He had formed a relationship, and he stayed at the table because he had to figure out how he was going to use this to make change on the things that he cared about most. Fast forward a little while, and Adrian's in our building, and he is visiting. He's bringing his campers to visit with our Mandela Washington Fellows. Mandela Washington Fellows who have participated in KLC every year since the beginning. These are young African leaders from all over sub-Saharan Africa who come and spend 6 weeks in Manhattan, Kansas with us to learn about and build their skills to make their communities safer, healthier, more just. And through their interaction with Adrian here at KLC, they made connections, and so his campers got a chance to visit with our fellows. I know it was meaningful for the campers. It was extraordinarily meaningful for the fellows as well. These relationships are absolutely essential to making progress and to meeting that ROI that we talked about. They're essential and they're not effortless. Even though there might be some people who make it seem effortless, many of you probably in this room either are those people or know those people. And I know that there is at least one who's not in the room. But he even knew that these relationships take effort. What they take is curiosity, generosity, and tending to. If I had a charge to give you tonight in this keynote address, this conversation, it would be to stay curious, to be generous, and to tend to your relationships. I want you to again think for a minute about those relationships that have been important to you. Those relationships can be in any aspect of your life. And I want you to think about how you have stayed curious, or maybe need to be curious, how you have had to be generous or seek the generosity of others, and also what you are doing or what you might do to tend to those relationships. Some of you may know Mary Kay Seifers. She's been a part of this KLC family as well. This is her great niece, Paige. I just like the photo. So back to my first principle. When we think about the first principles that draw us here, I'm reminded again of Senator Sinclair. When he talked about the first principles that brought people back to the reconciliation table, what it was very simple. He said, the first principle is, I want you to be my friend, and I want to be yours. When we need help, we will take care of one another. That says it for me. As adults, we know that we need to model for our children how to be with one another. All of us, as adults, have that obligation. And all of us are children. We need it modeled for us as well. So when I think about my first principle, what drew me to KLC and my connection to KLC, this is where it gets modeled and tested and tried. And this is where we stay at the table, even when we don't agree. Because what we care about is too important to walk away. When we have the relationships, we stay at the table. And not to be Debbie Downer, although I can be, although also sometimes I'm dark Mary, so choose. And I may be going dark here, so just stay with me for a minute. This feels very existential to me at this moment. Not to be over dramatic or over think this, but I think that life on this planet, that as we know it collectively as humans, is in peril. It's changing for sure, but I think this is an existential issue. And what we need, more than anything else, is to learn how to be better with each other. Be better to each other. And be more for each other. It's simple, but it's hard. It's very hard. We must be better with one another. We just have to. So, I am more than grateful for the relationships that I've had and connected to with this place for these many dozen years or so. I am more than grateful for the relationships that I have with individuals in this room, for the relationship that I get to have with these concepts, with these ideas, and with those maps, Kansas, the globe. What we're doing is pretty astonishing. It's big, it's bold, and to be a part of it is special. So I'm grateful, more than grateful. I'm inspired as well, and I thank you for this big and gracious and glorious tent. Thank you.